define how you want to do your business. Don't let your customers tell you how you're going to get, how they're going to pay you, or that they're going to skip because they don't want to do a service. That's not how you want to do business. So you need to define that and make that clear to them. So what are these advantages of going cashless? And that's using your routing software to its full capabilities, running ACHs, credit cards, etc. So obviously the first and foremost is you're getting paid faster. You're reducing accounts receivable. That's important for you to be able to pay your payroll, be able to make your bills, not have that stress, not have to have that worry about where am I gonna get it if I need to, make those payments. Another advantage of that is your safety of your assets. Cash is easily stolen. Historically, the technician would get cash from the customer, they bring it back, and hopefully it was all there, right? Well, now with being able to just run a credit card or an ACH, all that is getting put into your account, and it's more secure. Another advantage is your streamlined operations. Being able to reduce your admin time. If I can click a button at the beginning of the month and have all my payments ran, applied to all my customers' invoices, well, I don't have any administrative time of collecting all the checks, manually entering them in, and almost wasting their time. They could probably be working on better things and moving the business forward. So that is kind of a major advantage. And honestly, I still, to this day, last week, it was I working with about a $12 million company, and it took us 45 hours last week to close out their books because we had to run through 2,000 transaction lines of being able to make sure the batches were tying out to their merchant statement, and it was all a manual process through spreadsheets because that's how they're doing it. And this is a $12 million company. So,
what's pretty cool is, so, a lot of people are using credit cards because that's what people trust now, but ACHs are really starting to take on steam. And what Brian's talking about, billing on the first of the month, our clients, if you work with us, you get ACH the first of the month. All of our money comes in the first of the month. I don't worry about payroll. I don't worry about any expenses during the month because we get all our money through ACH the first of the month. So,
yeah, it's a great way to create predictable cash flow too. You know when you can time your expenses. It really makes running your business a lot simpler, and who doesn't want a simpler business to run? Obviously, with that, it comes increased accuracy. You're not going to misapply a payment or anything like that. Usually you can trust the major CRMs to be able to do all that stuff and do it accurately. One of the things that I think, and I've seen this with several of the clients that I've worked with, is if you aren't taking advantage of ACHs and credit cards and billing on the first of the month or going into that model, well, what if you have an opportunity that comes along and maybe you have $300,000 or $400,000 in AR, but what if half of that was in your bank account and you could buy that local one-man route that you could tuck into your company? Maybe you can't take advantage of that if you have a bunch of AR. So you can take advantage of those opportunities if you go this way. And then lastly, customer convenience. Everyone, me personally, I don't like owing people money. So if you could just pull it out of my bank account and I'm good with that, and it's much more convenient for me and your customers. So those are, in my opinion, some of the biggest advantages of being able to, move to this cashless society that we have today.
So what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, so there's always, good and bad with everything. So I'm sure all of you go to a restaurant nowadays, and if you don't pay cash, you get a 3.5% fee added to your bill. And how frustrating is that? Well, that's because us as consumers, we've started to resist that credit card processing fee. It's extremely expensive, and it cuts into our profits pretty tremendously. 3.5%.
Think about that. If a pest control company is earning, say, 15% on the bottom line, that's 20% of your net income is going to credit card fees.
It's adding up quickly. Yeah. So if you can, we'll talk about more, way to optimize this cashless society, but that's probably the first and foremost the biggest challenge of going to using credit cards. One of the other things is technology can be complicated. If you are hiring a CSR or whoever's responsible for doing this, they need to be proficient in the CRMs that they're using. And that's going to take a level of, technological savviness to be able to do everything that they need to do on a daily basis. So that can limit your hiring pool. It could, and who doesn't already have labor issues elsewhere in the business. So again, simplifying
it's a
it.
huge reconciliation process, because as you know, when you run a credit card, maybe it works, maybe it fails, and you've got to reconcile that and track people down.
Yeah. Data security. So you've got all these bank accounts and credit cards. Now, all these major CRMs are PCI compliant, right? So you shouldn't have to worry about too much. But what about if they get compromised? That doesn't happen often, but there's a possibility there. Now you have bank accounts and credit cards that are at risk.
What about if customers call and give a credit card number
Yeah.
and your CSR writes it on a little scratch paper instead of, does that ever happen to anybody? And instead of putting it in a computer? Yeah, it doesn't happen here. Okay. So,
And then all of a sudden you got some weird charges on that customer's account. So,
right?
So keeping on topic with customers, they might be resistant to it, right? They might be used to just doing things the way they've always done it, and they're like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Well, okay, but this is how we're going to do it. And we'll talk about that more later too, with if you're not doing it, how to make that switch. But and then what I've experienced working with clients closely is sometimes they're resistant to change. That's a challenge. If you can't overcome the hurdle of being able to make that change, that could also put you behind the 8 ball in the industry. So that's what I feel are most the disadvantages of going to this, and they can all be overcome.
So let's talk about the maybe billing the first of the month and disassociating service with payment.
Yeah. So I would say before we get into that, if we could talk about even just getting to how we make that switch, right? If we optimize after we've implemented, then that's the best case. But if you're not doing this already, you need to be able to make that switch. And I always tell my clients, hey, define how you want to do your business. Don't let your customers tell you how they're going to pay you, or that they're going to skip because they don't want to do a service. That's not how you want to do business. So you need to define that and make that clear to them. So once you're able to do that and stick to it, then you can say, all right, my leadership team, my key people that need to be involved with this is how we're doing it. We need to align them with this change. They need to be all bought in to be able for it to be effective.
So you mean that sometimes you have people that don't buy in on your staff?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Has that ever happened to you? Right? So anytime you make a big change like this, you've got to have people buy in.
And if they don't, you have to correct it quickly.
Yeah.
Otherwise it can spread.
Yeah.
With these new processes and SOPs, you have training that needs to be done. Like I was talking about with credit cards and ACHs, what if an ACH fails or bounces, or a credit card is, expired and they're not getting an auto update? They need to be able to know how to go in and do the reversal and, make sure they get with the customer. There has to be an SOP built out for that.
What's the difference in rate between an ACH and a credit card?
So, yeah, it's a great question. I mean, they're going to vary by every person, but I would say typically what I see is about 3.1 to 3.5% on credit cards, and an ACH is going to be somewhere around like 25 cents a transaction, with maybe a 1/10% of the total charge.
Right, so if you do a $1,000 termite job, if you can get that on ACH, you're going to pay 25 cents, maybe a little bit more with the fee, or you're going to pay 30-something dollars.
Yeah, and
so
adds up quick.
There's a big difference, but are people willing to give you their banking information? That's a big question.
Yeah, and then when we get this all rolled out internally, now we have to sell our customers on it. So we need to know and give everyone the tools to be able to say, hey, this is why it's so much more beneficial for you guys to be going on this. It's going to be more convenient. It's, budget friendly, et cetera, but you need to make sure your team are able to sell it to them. So.
Now, how about the monthly billing and the quarterly service, or 3-time-a-year service?
Yeah, so that's kind of like how you're optimizing this whole cashless society. And monthly billing creates a predictable revenue stream for you. You get to charge them on the first of the month. It flies under the radar. I mean, who here has a gym membership that they pay for and don't use? You can be you can be honest. I'm guilty. So if you do a price increase too on that, then if you're charging them $50 a month and you do a 5% price increase, $2.50 isn't really going to open up too many eyes.
So essentially what you're doing is, let's say you have to continue on with the $50. So you do a quarterly for $150, but instead you bill it $50 a month. I know that NASPAC and field routes can handle this. It really works quite nicely. And so you're spreading that cash flow over the 3 months. What you're also doing is you're disassociating service with payment, right? So in other words, if somebody skips, you say, that's okay. You paid a year or $600 a year for a pest-free environment. But if you want to skip, that's fine, but we're not giving your money back. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you guys seen recently, they came up with a new rule that you gotta click to cancel.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that.
It's going to be important. It's not in place yet, but to expand on that, just recently, about I think it was October 16th, the FTC came out with consumer protections on subscription-based services where, I don't know who has a home appliance insurance plan on their house or, the gym membership. And you're going to have to be able to do a one-click opt-out of that subscription. And so the major CRMs are probably going to have to come up with some sort of way to include that on like a monthly bill that you get or something like that, where you can just say, I'm done, click, and be out of it. So yeah, it's a great point to bring up.
But there's also some things that we need some clarity on, right? If you're in a contract, just because it's a subscription, if you signed a contract, how does that get handled? And that's not clear right now, right? But usually pest control service agreements are just that, they're not contracts. If I really want to get out of a pest control service agreement, or if you want to call it a contract, all I have to do is say, I still have bugs. You haven't fulfilled your obligation, therefore I'm out. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, I mean, just to expand a little bit on the whole pest-free environment thing, I think it's a philosophy change in your business, where that'll help you disassociate that service with payment, and being able to, get your customers on board with that is where the difficulty will lie. But, you have to make sure if you're going to go into that subscription-based model, monthly billing, you have to bill in reservices to that. So you can't just say, I'm going to service you 4 times and I'll charge you 4 times. Well, you have to bake into that. Okay, on average, our customers are calling back 2 times for services in between scheduled visits. So make sure you're doing that. But ultimately, if you optimize it, moving to the ACHs, like we were just saying, with the cost savings is tremendous. And it's, I would say, picking up more and more steam on people accepting it. Think about it, like if you send a check out right now, your bank account routing number is right there anyway. I mean, they could intercept it in the mail. So it's still more secure. There's still fraud protections that are in place if you bank with a good bank. And
right.